My name is Edna, and I am 62 years old. I thought I understood what family meant until that morning at the hotel front desk when my daughter-in-law looked straight at me and said those words I will never forget. We were on what was supposed to be a peaceful family vacation, a chance to grow closer, to build memories together. I had hoped this trip would bridge the distance I felt growing between us. I packed my bags with such optimism, believing that maybe, just maybe, things would finally change. But standing there in that lobby, watching her face twist with contempt, I realized how wrong I had been about everything. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, because what my daughter-in-law did at that hotel front desk changed everything I thought I knew about family, and what I did in response sent her into complete panic. I have been a widow for 5 years now. My husband Thomas passed away from a sudden heart attack one cold February morning. We had built a good life together, starting with nothing and working our way up through decades of dedication and sacrifice. I live alone now in a small, modest house on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. The neighbors are kind, the streets are quiet, and I have my little garden where I grow tomatoes and roses. What most people do not know about me is how I spent my working years. I started in the hospitality industry when I was just 20 years old, working as a receptionist at a small motel downtown. I loved the work, loved meeting people, loved making their stays comfortable. Over the years, I climbed the ladder, learning every aspect of the business. I saved every penny I could, made smart investments, and eventually bought my first property, a rundown bed and breakfast that I renovated with my own 2 hands alongside Thomas. That single property grew into 3. I now own a small chain of boutique hotels along the Oregon coast. They are beautiful properties, each one carefully designed to offer guests an unforgettable experience. The crown jewel is a resort in Cannon Beach, a stunning 4-story building with ocean views, a world-class restaurant, and a spa that has won awards. But I have always kept this part of my life private. I dress simply, drive an older sedan, and live without ostentation. I learned long ago that wealth changes how people treat you, and I wanted to be valued for who I am, not what I own. My son Brian is my only child. He is 35 years old, works as an accountant at a consulting firm, and has always been a loving, thoughtful boy. When he was young, we were inseparable. He would help me in the garden, we would cook together, and he would tell me everything about his day. Even as he grew older, we remained close. He called every week, visited regularly, and I felt blessed to have such a wonderful son. Then he met Stephanie. They married 3 years ago. Stephanie comes from a wealthy family in California. Her father owns a chain of car dealerships, and she grew up with every advantage. She works in marketing for a tech company, earns a good salary, and has expensive tastes. Designer handbags, luxury vacations, high-end restaurants. I tried to be welcoming when Brian first introduced us. I invited them for dinner, asked about her work, showed genuine interest in her life. But from the beginning, I sensed something cold in her. She smiled, said the right things, but her eyes never warmed. She answered my questions with brief, polite responses and never asked me anything in return. At their wedding, she seated me at a table in the back, far from the main family. When I mentioned it to Brian, he apologized and said it was a mistake in the seating chart. Over the 3 years of their marriage, I watched my son drift away. His phone calls became less frequent. His visits dropped to once every few months, and when he did come, Stephanie rarely joined him. When she did, she spent the entire time on her phone or making comments about needing to leave early. I overheard her once talking to a friend on the phone in my kitchen. She said, "His mom is just a simple woman, you know. Kinda boring, honestly." Those words stung, but I said nothing. I told myself she was young, that she would mature, that I needed to give her time. I kept trying. I sent birthday cards, Christmas gifts, thoughtful messages. She responded with brief thank you texts, nothing more. 6 months ago, we had dinner together, the 3 of us. It was a short, uncomfortable meal. Stephanie complained about the restaurant I had chosen, said the wine was cheap, and spent most of the evening talking about a vacation she and Brian were planning to Bali, just the 2 of them. When I mentioned how beautiful Bali sounded, she smiled tightly and said, "Yes, we are really looking forward to some alone time." After that dinner, I cried in my car for 20 minutes before driving home. Then last month, something unexpected happened. Brian called me, his voice bright and excited. "Mom, we are planning a family vacation, a long weekend at the coast. We want you to come with us." I was stunned. "Really? Both of you?" "Yes, both of us. Stephanie thought it would be nice to spend some quality time together." I could hardly believe it. Maybe I had been wrong. Maybe she was trying. Maybe this was the fresh start we needed. "Where are we going?" I asked. "This amazing resort in Cannon Beach. Stephanie found it online. It looks incredible." I felt my heart skip. Cannon Beach, my resort. But I said nothing. I simply told Brian I would love to join them. The week before the trip, I could barely contain my excitement. I bought Stephanie a beautiful silk scarf I found at a local boutique, hand-painted with delicate floral patterns. I packed carefully, choosing comfortable clothes for walking on the beach and a few nicer outfits for dinners. I imagined long conversations, laughter, the beginning of a real relationship with my daughter-in-law. The morning we left, Brian picked me up in his car. Stephanie sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone. I climbed into the back with my small suitcase. "Good morning," I said cheerfully. "Thank you so much for including me in this trip." "Morning," Stephanie said without looking up. Brian smiled at me in the rearview mirror. "We are going to have a great time, Mom." The drive took just under 2 hours. Brian tried to make conversation, asking me about my garden, about the book club I attend. I answered happily, asking Stephanie questions about her work, her hobbies. She gave one-word answers, her eyes never leaving her phone. Halfway through the drive, Brian suggested we stop for coffee. "There's a great little place up ahead," Stephanie sighed. "Why do we have to stop? We are already running late." "We are not late, Steph. It's just a quick coffee break." "Fine, whatever." We pulled into a small roadside cafe. Inside, I ordered a simple drip coffee. Brian got a latte. Stephanie ordered an elaborate drink with extra shots and almond milk, then complained when it took more than 3 minutes to prepare. When the barista handed it to her, she tasted it and frowned. "This is not right. I said extra hot." The poor girl apologized and remade it. When the barista asked if we were paying together, I reached for my wallet. "I will get this." Stephanie cut in sharply. "I will pay for myself, thanks." Brian looked embarrassed. "Mom, you don't have to." "I want to," I said gently. Stephanie handed her card to the barista without another word. As we walked back to the car, I overheard Stephanie whisper to Brian, "Why did you have to invite her? This was supposed to be our vacation." My stomach dropped. Brian's voice was low but firm. "Stephanie, she's my mom." "I know, but still." I pretended not to hear. I climbed back into the car, staring out the window as we continued driving, my earlier excitement now replaced with a heavy, sinking feeling. The resort appeared on the horizon, like a palace rising from the cliffs. The building was modern, all glass and natural wood, blending seamlessly into the rugged coastline. The ocean stretched endlessly beyond, waves crashing against the rocks below. I had poured my heart into this property, working with architects and designers to create something truly special. Seeing it now through the eyes of someone pretending to be a guest filled me with bittersweet pride. Stephanie gasped as we pulled into the circular driveway. "Oh my God, Brian, this place is gorgeous." "I told you," he said, grinning. "Only the best." She immediately pulled out her phone, snapping photos of the exterior. "This is so going on Instagram. My followers are going to die." We stepped out of the car. A valet appeared, instantly greeting us warmly. "Welcome to Ocean View Resort. May I take your bags?" "Yes, thank you," Brian said. I grabbed my small suitcase before the valet could reach it. "I can manage mine." Stephanie glanced at me, then quickly looked away. The lobby was breathtaking. Soaring ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, contemporary furniture in soft blues and grays, a massive stone fireplace crackling with real wood. Fresh flowers adorned every surface, and soft instrumental music played from hidden speakers. Stephanie spun around, taking it all in. "This place is perfect. I cannot believe you found this, Brian." I smiled to myself. I knew every inch of this building. I had chosen the paint colors, the furniture, the artwork on the walls. I had interviewed every member of the staff personally, and there, standing near the reception desk, was Sarah, my general manager. She was 45, sharp professional, and had been with me for 8 years. I trusted her completely. Sarah glanced up and saw me. Her eyes widened slightly, and a smile began to form. I gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of my head. She understood immediately. Her expression smoothed into polite neutrality, and she continued speaking with another guest. We approached the front desk. A young woman stood behind the counter, her name tag reading Emma. She was new hired just 2 months ago. I remembered approving her application. Fresh out of hospitality school, eager, nervous, and kind. "Good afternoon," Emma said brightly. "Welcome to Ocean View Resort. Checking in?" "Yes," Brian said. "Reservation under Thompson." Emma typed efficiently. "Yes, Mr. Thompson. We have you in our deluxe ocean suite. It is on the 3rd floor with a private balcony overlooking the water." Stephanie leaned over the counter. "Make sure it is the best room. We want the view, the big bathroom, everything." Emma nodded. "Yes, ma'am. The deluxe ocean suite is one of our finest rooms." "Good." Stephanie crossed her arms. "And what about her—" She jerked her chin toward me, her tone laced with disdain. Brian cleared his throat. "My mother's room is next to ours." Stephanie's head snapped toward him. "Next to us? Seriously?" Emma's smile faltered. She glanced at me, clearly uncomfortable. I stepped forward, trying to ease the tension. "Any room is wonderful, dear. I am just grateful to be here." Stephanie rolled her eyes and turned back to Brian. "Can we get her a room on another floor, like the 1st floor or something?" Brian's face flushed. "Steph, that is my mom." "Fine, whatever." She waved her hand dismissively. Emma looked like she wanted to disappear. Her fingers trembled slightly as she continued typing. Sarah, who had been watching from across the lobby, walked over smoothly. "Is everything all right here?" Sarah asked, her voice calm and professional. "Yes," Emma said quickly. "Just finalizing the rooms." Sarah glanced at me, and I gave her a small, reassuring nod. She turned to Brian and Stephanie. "We will make sure everyone is comfortable during your stay. If you need anything at all, please do not hesitate to ask." Stephanie did not respond. She simply grabbed the key card Emma handed her and walked toward the elevator without waiting. Brian smiled apologetically. "Thank you. Sorry about that." "No problem at all, sir," Sarah said. "Enjoy your stay." I took my key card from Emma. "Thank you, dear." She gave me a sympathetic look. "You are welcome, ma'am." I rode the elevator alone to the 3rd floor. My room was at the end of the hall next to Brian and Stephanie's suite. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was beautiful, just as I had designed it. Soft linens, a comfortable bed, a sitting area with a view of the ocean. I set my suitcase down and walked to the window. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The waves rolled in endlessly, their rhythm soothing. I stood there for a long time, feeling a profound sense of loneliness. This was my hotel, my dream made real, and yet I felt like an unwelcome guest in my own creation. I sat on the edge of the bed and let myself cry just for a moment before pulling myself together. I washed my face, changed into fresh clothes, and told myself that tomorrow would be better. That evening we met for dinner at the resort's restaurant. The space was elegant with white tablecloths, candlelight, and panoramic ocean views. The sun had fully set, and the lights from the dining room reflected off the dark water outside. I had chosen a simple navy dress from my closet, paired with a cardigan and low heels. I thought I looked presentable, appropriate for a nice dinner. When I arrived at the table, Stephanie was already seated wearing a stunning designer dress, her jewelry sparkling in the candlelight. She looked me up and down as I approached. "Edna, you did not bring anything nicer to wear." I felt my cheeks flush. "This is comfortable for me." She smirked. "Well, this is a 5-star restaurant. People usually dress up." Brian, who was studying the wine list, looked up. "Mom looks fine, Steph." "If you say so." Stephanie rolled her eyes and turned her attention to the menu. I sat down quietly, feeling small. A waiter appeared, reciting the evening's specials. Stephanie ordered the most expensive entree, a surf and turf platter, and a glass of wine from the premium list. Brian ordered a steak. When the waiter turned to me, I glanced at the prices and chose the grilled salmon, one of the more affordable options. Stephanie snorted softly. Of course she would order the cheapest thing. I heard her. I pretended not to, but the words landed like stones in my chest. Brian tried to change the subject. "So, Mom, How is your garden doing? Are your tomatoes coming in?" I was grateful for his effort. "Yes, they are doing wonderfully this year. I have been making fresh salsa almost every week." Stephanie interrupted. "Brian, I want to talk about our plans tomorrow. The spa here has a couples package, massages, facials, the whole thing. I already looked it up. It is supposed to be amazing." "That sounds great," Brian said. I ventured, "That sounds lovely. Maybe I could join you for a treatment." Stephanie did not even look at me. "Actually, it is a couples spa package. You know, for couples only." Brian shifted uncomfortably. "Steph, we can do a different activity." "No, I already decided. I want the couples package." Her tone left no room for argument. I smiled, trying to hide my hurt. "That is fine. I can explore the area on my own." The rest of the meal passed in strained silence. Stephanie talked endlessly about the spa, about how luxurious everything looked, about how she deserved this after working so hard. Brian nodded along, occasionally glancing at me with apologetic eyes. I ate my salmon quietly, tasting nothing. When the check came, Brian reached for it, but I saw the total. It was over $200. I knew Brian and Stephanie's finances were tight. They had just bought a new house. "Let me get this," I said, reaching for my purse. "Mom, no," Brian protested. Stephanie leaned back in her chair. "If she wants to pay, let her pay." Brian looked mortified. "Stephanie." "What I am just saying." I handed my card to the waiter before Brian could argue further. As we left the restaurant, Stephanie walked ahead, already on her phone, texting someone. Brian fell into step beside me. "Mom, I am sorry about tonight," he said quietly. "It is fine, honey." "It is not fine. She should not have said those things." I squeezed his arm. "She is still adjusting to having me around. Give her time." But even as I said it, I did not believe it. The next morning I woke early and went down to breakfast alone. The restaurant was quiet, only a few other guests scattered among the tables. I ordered coffee and oatmeal, sitting by the window and watching the waves. Sarah appeared at my table. "Good morning, ma'am. Is everything satisfactory with your room?" I smiled. "Everything is perfect, Sarah. Thank you." She hesitated. "If you need anything at all, please let me know." Her eyes were full of concern. She had noticed the tension yesterday. I appreciated her discretion. "I will," I said. "Thank you." Brian and Stephanie did not come down until late morning after their spa appointment time. I spent the morning walking along the beach alone, the cool sand between my toes, the wind in my hair. I watched families playing together, couples walking hand in hand, and felt the weight of my isolation. In the afternoon, we met for lunch. Stephanie could not stop talking about the spa. "It was so incredible, Brian. The massage therapist was amazing, and the eucalyptus steam room heaven." Brian smiled. "I am glad you enjoyed it." Stephanie finally glanced at me. "What did you do this morning, Edna?" "I took a walk on the beach. It was lovely." "Oh, that is nice." Her tone was flat, disinterested. That evening, Brian suggested we visit a nearby lighthouse. It was a historic site perched on a rocky outcrop with stunning views. Stephanie groaned. "That sounds so boring. Can we do something else?" "Mom would love it," Brian said. "She loves history." Stephanie muttered, "Of course she would." We went anyway because Brian insisted. The lighthouse was beautiful, its white tower stark against the blue sky. I read the informational plaques aloud, sharing facts about its construction and the shipwrecks it had prevented. Brian listened attentively, asking questions. Stephanie stood 20 feet away, taking selfies and checking her phone every 30 seconds. After 10 minutes, she called out, "Can we leave now? This is so boring." Brian sighed. "Just a few more minutes, Steph." "Whatever." On the drive back, Stephanie turned to Brian. "Next time we travel, can we just go by ourselves without anyone else?" Brian's jaw tightened. "Stephanie, that is enough." "What? I am just being honest. Your mom does not even fit in with us. She does not like the same things we do." I stared out the window, tears streaming silently down my face. I did not make a sound. I did not want Brian to see. When we arrived back at the resort, I went straight to my room. A few minutes later, Brian knocked on my door. "Mom, are you okay?" I opened the door, my face composed. "I am fine, honey. Just tired." She did not mean it the way it sounded. "I know. I lied. "Do not worry about me. Go spend time with your wife." He hugged me tightly. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too." After he left, I sat on my bed and called my best friend Linda. She was 64, also a widow, and we had known each other for over 30 years. "Edna, you do not deserve this," she said after I told her everything. "Why do you not tell Brian the truth about how she treats you?" "I do not want to come between them. He loves her." "But you are his mother. He needs to know." "Maybe after this trip," I said. "I just want to get through it." "You are too kind for your own good." After we hung up, I made a decision. I would avoid conflict for the rest of the trip. I would keep my distance, stay out of their way, and get through these last 2 days. The fourth morning of our trip began with another uncomfortable breakfast. We sat at a table near the window, the morning sun streaming in. I had dressed simply again in jeans and a cardigan. Stephanie wore designer athleisure, her hair and makeup perfect. A couple at the table next to ours, the Harrisons, smiled warmly at us. They appeared to be in their 50s, well-dressed and friendly. Mrs. Harrison leaned over. "What a lovely family. Are you here on vacation?" I smiled. "Yes, a family trip." Stephanie cut in quickly. "Yes, we are here for our anniversary getaway." She emphasized the word "we," completely excluding me. Mrs. Harrison looked at me. "Oh, and you must be—" Before I could answer, Stephanie said, "She is Brian's mother. She tagged along." Her tone was dismissive, almost embarrassed. The air grew awkward. Mr. Harrison tried to smooth things over. "How nice to have family together." Stephanie smiled tightly and turned away, effectively ending the conversation. I felt humiliated. I excused myself from the table, claiming I needed to use the restroom. Inside the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face and took several deep breaths. Later that day, we went to the pool. The area was crowded with families and couples enjoying the sunshine. I wore a modest one-piece swimsuit with a cover-up and settled into a lounge chair with a book. Stephanie wore an expensive bikini and immediately positioned herself on a prime sunbathing chair. Brian went for a swim. A group of 3 women around Stephanie's age gathered at the pool bar nearby. Stephanie struck up a conversation with them, laughing and chatting. I tried to focus on my book, but their voices carried. One woman said, "Your mother-in-law is with you. That is sweet." Stephanie laughed, but it was not a kind laugh. "Ugh, do not remind me. It was not my idea." "Is it awkward?" "Very. She is just— I do not know, she does not understand our lifestyle. She is from a different generation. You know, super simple does not care about nice things. She is practically a servant in her own life, just cleaning and cooking. I cannot relate at all." The women laughed. I felt like I had been slapped. My book blurred in front of me. I closed it carefully, stood up and walked back toward the hotel, my vision swimming with unshed tears. Brian came out of the pool as I was leaving. "Mom, where are you going?" "I am feeling a bit tired from the sun. I think I will rest in my room." "Already? We just got here." I forced a smile. "I will see you at dinner." In my room, I finally let myself cry. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook my entire body. I called Linda again. "She said I am like a servant in my own life," I told her. "She said it to strangers like it was a joke." "Edna, enough is enough. You need to stand up for yourself. I do not want to make things worse. Worse than this, she is treating you like garbage. I just need to get through tomorrow. Then I can go home and forget this ever happened." But even as I said it, I knew I would never forget. That evening we had dinner at the resort's fine dining restaurant again. The atmosphere was tense. Stephanie texted constantly, barely touching her food. Brian tried to make conversation, but neither of us had much to say. I ate quickly, wanting nothing more than to escape back to my room. After dinner, I said goodnight and left. I did not sleep well that night. I kept replaying Stephanie's words, feeling the sting of each one. The next morning, our last day, I woke with a sense of relief. Soon this trip would be over. I could go home, tend my garden, and pretend this had never happened. I woke early on our final morning, my small suitcase already packed and ready by the door. I had barely slept, tossing and turning through the night, replaying every cutting remark, every dismissive glance. But soon I would be home. Soon this painful trip would be just a memory I could try to forget. I dressed in khaki pants and a simple button-down shirt, pulling my gray hair into a low ponytail. I looked at myself in the mirror. Stephanie was right, I realized with a pang. I did look plain, simple, unremarkable, just an old woman who did not belong in fancy places like this. I shook my head, trying to dispel the thought. I grabbed my suitcase and headed downstairs. The lobby was bustling with guests, checking out families loading luggage, the sounds of rolling suitcases and cheerful goodbyes filling the space. I stood near the reception desk waiting for Brian and Stephanie. I watched Emma, the young receptionist, efficiently helping guests with a warm smile. I saw Sarah across the lobby speaking with a couple, her professionalism evident in every gesture. Sarah caught my eye and walked over. "Mrs. Edna," she said quietly, "is everything prepared for your departure?" "Yes, thank you, Sarah," I replied, keeping my voice low. She hesitated. "I hope your stay was pleasant." I managed a small smile. "The hotel is as beautiful as ever. You have done wonderful work." She looked like she wanted to say more, but guests were waiting. She squeezed my hand briefly and returned to her duties. A few minutes later, Brian and Stephanie emerged from the elevator. Stephanie was dressed impeccably in designer jeans, a silk blouse, and expensive sunglasses perched on her head. She pulled a large Louis Vuitton suitcase behind her, looking irritated. Brian looked tired. I wondered if they had been arguing. "Morning, Mom," he said, giving me a quick hug. "Good morning, honey." Stephanie said nothing, walking straight to the reception desk where Emma was stationed. Brian approached the counter. "Good morning. Checking out. Thompson." Emma smiled. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. I hope you enjoyed your stay." "We did, thank you." Emma began processing the checkout, her fingers flying over the keyboard. After a moment, she frowned slightly. "I am just verifying a few charges on your account. There are some room service items and spa services." Brian leaned in. "How much are we talking?" "Let me just pull up the itemized bill." Emma printed out a statement and handed it to Brian. His eyes widened. "This is almost $800 in extras." Stephanie snatched the paper from his hand. "What? Let me see that." Emma said apologetically, "The spa package and the in-room dining as well as the premium wine selection." Stephanie snapped, "Well, obviously, what is taking so long?" "We have a long drive ahead of us." Emma, flustered, said, "I am sorry, ma'am. I am just making sure everything is accurate before finalizing." I stepped closer, trying to help ease the tension. "Emma, dear, if there is any confusion, perhaps I can." And Stephanie whirled around. Her face was twisted with annoyance and contempt. She shouted loud enough that everyone in the lobby turned to look. "Excuse me, do not talk to the old lady. She is just the maid." The lobby fell silent, completely silent. Every conversation stopped. Every person turned to stare. I stood frozen. The words hit me like a physical blow. My face went hot, then cold. I felt the eyes of dozens of strangers on me, pitying me, shocked by what they had just witnessed. Emma's mouth fell open. She looked horrified. Brian stared at Stephanie, his face going pale, then red. "What's Stephanie?" Stephanie seemed to realize people were looking, but instead of apologizing, she doubled down. "What I thought she was staff. She looks like she works here." She gestured dismissively at my plain clothing. Brian's voice rose. "That is my mother." Stephanie crossed her arms. "I know that, Brian. I am saying she looks like the maid, not that she is the maid." "God, calm down." Brian looked like he might explode. "How can you say that? How can you even think that is okay?" Stephanie incredibly laughed. A sharp, mocking laugh. "Oh, come on. Look at her. She dresses like she cleans rooms for a living." And then Brian did something that shocked me. He burst out laughing. Not a joyful laugh, but a bitter, disbelieving laugh that bordered on hysteria. "I cannot believe you just said that. I cannot believe this is happening." Stephanie looked confused by his reaction. "What? It is not that serious." I stood there, tears streaming down my face, unable to move or speak. The humiliation was complete, public, devastating. Emma looked at me with such sympathy, it made me want to cry harder. Several guests nearby were shaking their heads. Mrs. Harrison, standing a few feet away with her husband, whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "How disrespectful." An older gentleman stepped forward. "Ma'am, you should apologize to this woman right now." Stephanie glared at him. "Mind your own business." Brian grabbed Stephanie's arm. "Stephanie, enough!" She jerked away, startled. Brian rarely raised his voice. "Fine," she said, turning to me with an expression of extreme annoyance. "Sorry, Edna." The words were flat, insincere, forced. I could not look at her. I could not look at anyone. I turned toward the door, desperate to escape. "Mom, wait!" Brian called after me. I did not stop. I pushed through the lobby doors and stepped outside into the cool morning air. My chest heaved as I tried to catch my breath, tried to stop the tears, tried to hold myself together. Behind me, I heard the door open. Sarah's voice. "Mrs. Edna?" I turned. Sarah stood there, her professional mask slipping her face full of concern and barely contained anger. "I am so sorry," she said. "That was completely unacceptable." I wiped my eyes. "It is not your fault, Sarah. Do you want me to tell them? Should I let them know who you are?" I took a shaky breath. For 5 years, I had remained silent. I had swallowed every insult, every slight, every cruel word. I had told myself it did not matter that I should rise above it, that keeping the peace was more important than defending myself. But standing there in front of my own hotel, having just been called a maid by my daughter-in-law, something inside me shifted. "Give me a few minutes," I said quietly. "Then yes, it is time." Sarah nodded. "What would you like me to do?" I thought for a moment. "Prepare the boardroom. I want to have a meeting with Brian and Stephanie. And Sarah, invite the senior staff. I want them there too." Her eyes widened slightly. "Understood." I stood alone outside for a few minutes, looking out at the ocean, gathering my strength. I thought about Thomas, about how proud he had been when we opened this place. I thought about all the years of hard work, all the sacrifices, all the quiet dignity I had maintained, and I thought about my son who deserved to know the truth about the woman he married. I pulled out my phone and sent Sarah a text. "I am ready. Let us do this." I walked back into the lobby. My tears had dried. My hands were steady. I felt a calm resolve settle over me. Brian and Stephanie were still at the front desk. Stephanie looked bored and irritated. Brian looked miserable. I approached them. "Brian, Stephanie, I need you both to come with me for a moment." Stephanie sighed dramatically. "What now?" "We really need to leave." I met her eyes. My voice was calm but firm. "It will only take a few minutes. Please." Something in my tone must have surprised her, because she did not argue further. Brian looked worried. "Mom, are you okay?" "I will be," I said. "Come with me." Sarah was waiting by the boardroom door. "Right this way, please." Stephanie looked annoyed. "Why is the manager involved in this?" I did not answer. I simply walked into the boardroom. The boardroom was impressive, designed for important meetings and corporate events. A long mahogany table dominated the center, surrounded by leather chairs. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the ocean. The walls were decorated with tasteful artwork and framed accolades the resort had received over the years. 4 people were already seated at the table. Sarah took her place at one end. Beside her sat David, my assistant general manager, a sharp man in his early 40s. Next to him was Rachel, the head of operations, a competent woman in her late 30s. And at the far end sat Marcus, my finance director, a dignified man in his 50s with silver hair. Brian and Stephanie entered behind me looking confused. "What is this?" Stephanie demanded. "Who are all these people? Please sit down," I said. Brian pulled out a chair for me, first ever the gentleman, but I remained standing. He and Stephanie sat both looking bewildered. I stood at the head of the table, taking a moment to look at each person in the room. These were people I trusted, people who had worked alongside me for years. They knew what I had built. They knew who I was. I turned my attention to Stephanie. "Stephanie," I began, my voice steady. "This morning you said something to me in the lobby. You said I look like the maid." She shifted uncomfortably. "I said I was sorry. Can we please just move past this?" "No," I said simply. "We cannot move past it, because you also said I dress like I clean rooms for a living. You said it loudly in front of dozens of people." Her face flushed. "I did not mean it like that." Yes, you did. And it is not the first time you have made it clear what you think of me. Brian started to speak. Mom. I held up my hand. Let me finish, Brian. Please. He closed his mouth, his expression pained. I continued. Throughout this entire trip, you have treated me with contempt. You told your friends at the pool that I am like a servant in my own life, that I am simple, that you cannot relate to me. You excluded me from activities. You made comments about my clothing, my choices, my very presence. You have made it abundantly clear that you believe I am beneath you. Stephanie's face went from red to pale. Those were private conversations. They were loud enough for me to hear, and this morning's insult was anything but private. Brian turned to Stephanie, his voice shaking. You said all those things. She did not answer. I looked at Sarah. Sarah, would you please tell them who I am? Sarah stood. Mrs. Thompson, this is not just any hotel. This is Ocean View Resort, one of 3 properties owned and operated by Edna Thompson. Silence. Stephanie's mouth fell open. What? I continued. I would like to introduce you properly to my staff. This is Sarah Mitchell, my general manager. She has worked with me for 8 years. David here is my assistant GM. Rachel manages all operations, and Marcus oversees our finances. Brian looked like he had been struck. Mom, you own this hotel. Yes, I have owned it for 10 years. I also own 2 other properties along this coast. I built them from the ground up, starting with a small bed and breakfast that your father and I renovated together 30 years ago. Stephanie's face had gone completely white. She looked around the table at the staff, then back at me. You are rich. I smiled thinly. I am comfortable. I have worked very hard for everything I have, but I have never believed that wealth defines a person's worth. I dress simply because I do not need expensive clothes to feel valuable. I live modestly because ostentation does not interest me. I wanted to be judged for who I am, not what I own. Stephanie stood up suddenly, her chair scraping loudly. I did not know. Edna, I swear I did not know. I would never have... You would never have what, I interrupted, insulted me if you knew I was wealthy, so it was acceptable to treat me that way when you thought I was poor. She had no answer. Tears started streaming down her face. I made a mistake. I am so sorry. Are you sorry for how you treated me? Or are you sorry that you were wrong about who I am? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Brian stood running his hands through his hair. Mom, why did you not tell us? Why did you let this go on? Because I wanted to see who people really are when they think I have nothing. I learned a long time ago that money changes everything. It changes how people look at you, talk to you, treat you. I did not want that with my family. I wanted authentic relationships. I paused, looking directly at Stephanie. But what I learned is that you never wanted an authentic relationship with me. You judged me from the moment you met me. You decided I was not worth your time, not worth your respect, because I did not fit your image of success. Stephanie collapsed back into her chair, sobbing. I turned to Sarah. Sarah, please comp their entire stay. All meals, all services, everything. Consider it a gift from me. Sarah nodded. Of course. Stephanie's head snapped up. You are paying for everything. The room, the spa, everything. I have been paying since you arrived. The resort is mine. Every luxury you enjoyed, every expensive meal you ordered, every treatment you indulged in while excluding me, I paid for all of it. The realization hit her like a wave. She had spent the entire trip looking down on me, insulting me while I was footing the bill for her extravagance. She put her face in her hands and wept. I felt no satisfaction in her tears, only a deep, profound sadness. Stephanie, I said quietly, I want you to understand something. Respect is not about money or status or designer clothes. It is about basic human decency. It is about treating people with kindness, regardless of what you think they can offer you. I know, she whispered. I am so sorry. I do not think you do know, because if you did, you would never have treated me the way you did. You would never have said the things you said. I turned to Brian. Honey, I am not telling you what to do. but you need to think very carefully about the kind of person you want to spend your life with. Marriage is hard enough without being married to someone who looks down on others, who judges people by their clothes and their bank accounts. Brian looked torn, devastated. "Mom, I am so sorry. I should have stopped this. I should have defended you more." "You tried, sweetheart. I saw you try. But this is not your fault. This is between Stephanie and me." I looked at Stephanie one more time. "I hope you learn from this. I hope you grow. But that is up to you." I turned to the staff. "Thank you all for being here. I appreciate your support." They nodded, their faces a mix of sympathy and respect. I walked to the door. Brian followed me. "Mom, please do not leave like this." "I am going to extend my stay here for a couple more days. I need some time alone. You two should go home." "Mom." "Brian, you need to have some serious conversations with your wife. Take the car, drive home, think about things." He hugged me tightly. "I love you." "I love you too, sweetheart. So much." Stephanie came over, her face blotchy and tear-stained. "Edna, please, please give me another chance." I looked at her. "That is not my decision to make. That is up to Brian. But Stephanie, you have a lot of work to do, a lot of soul-searching. I hope you find what you are looking for." I left the boardroom. Sarah walked me to the elevator. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I will be." That took a lot of courage, I smiled. Or maybe just a lot of pain that finally reached its limit. In my room, I stood at the window looking out at the ocean. My phone buzzed. Linda. "How are you holding up?" she texted. "I did it. I told them." "Good. I am proud of you." I decided to stay 2 extra days. I walked the beach for hours, letting the wind clear my head. I had dinner alone in the restaurant, finally able to enjoy the food without tension. Sarah checked on me daily, making sure I had everything I needed. The days after the confrontation were strange, peaceful but heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. I extended my stay at the resort for 2 more nights, needing the space and solitude to process it all. Sarah ensured I had complete privacy, instructing staff to give me space while still being available if I needed anything. I spent those days walking the beach for hours, letting the rhythm of the waves calm my racing thoughts. I sat on the rocks watching the sun rise and set, feeling the salt air on my face. For the first time in years, I felt unburdened. The truth was out. No more pretending. No more swallowing insults in silence. On the second evening, I called Linda. She answered immediately. "Edna, how are you really doing?" "I am okay," I said, and I meant it. I am actually okay. "I am so proud of you for standing up for yourself. That could not have been easy." "It was not, but it was necessary." "What happens now?" "I do not know. That is up to Brian and Stephanie." We talked for over an hour. She told me about her week, her grandchildren, the book club meeting I had missed. Normal, comforting conversation. When we hung up, I felt grounded again. The third morning, I checked out of the resort. Sarah personally handled everything. "We will miss having you here," she said warmly, "though I wish it had been under better circumstances." "Thank you for everything, Sarah. For your discretion, your support, all of it." "Always, Mrs. Edna. You are not just my boss. You are family." I hugged her, fighting back tears. The drive home was quiet. I listened to soft music and let my mind wander. When I pulled into my driveway, my little house looked exactly as I had left it. The garden needed watering. The mail had piled up. Everything was normal, ordinary, exactly as it should be. That first week back, Brian called me every day, sometimes twice a day. "Mom, I am so sorry. I keep replaying everything in my head and I feel sick." "Brian, you are not responsible for Stephanie's actions." "But I should have stopped it sooner. I should have defended you more." "You did what you could. Marriage is complicated. I understand that." "We are in therapy," he told me on the 4th day. "Both of us, together and separately." I was surprised. "That is good, honey. That is really good." "Stephanie wants to talk to you when you are ready." I was not sure I was ready, but I said, "Okay, when the time is right." 2 weeks after we returned, a letter arrived, handwritten on nice stationery, from Stephanie. I made myself a cup of tea and sat in my garden before opening it. The letter was 3 pages long. "Dear Edna, it began. I do not know if you will read this. I do not know if I deserve for you to read this. But I need to try to explain, even though I know there is no excuse for how I treated you. She wrote about her upbringing, about growing up in a family where appearance and status were everything, about how she had been taught to value the wrong things, to judge people by superficial measures, about how therapy was helping her see how deeply flawed her worldview had been. I looked at you and saw someone I was taught to dismiss, she wrote. Someone who did not dress right, did not care about the right things, did not fit into my narrow idea of what mattered. I am ashamed to admit that I never saw you. I never tried to know you. I never gave you a chance. The letter went on. She apologized specifically for every incident, every cruel word, every dismissive gesture. She acknowledged the pain she had caused. She did not make excuses. I do not expect you to forgive me, she concluded. I do not know if I can forgive myself, but I want you to know that I am trying to change. I am trying to become a better person. And if you are ever willing to give me another chance, even just to talk, I would be grateful beyond words. I folded the letter carefully and sat with it for a long time. A week later, I called Brian. Tell Stephanie I will meet with her, just the two of us, for coffee. Really, Mom? Yes. I am not promising anything, but I am willing to talk. We met at a small cafe in town. Stephanie arrived early looking nervous. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, no designer labels. Her makeup was minimal. She looked younger, more vulnerable. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. I read your letter. I meant every word. We talked for 2 hours. She was honest about her failures, about the work she was doing in therapy, about how much she regretted everything. She did not try to explain it away or minimize it. She owned it completely. I listened. I asked questions. I shared how deeply she had hurt me, how isolating and humiliating the experience had been. I understand if you can never forgive me, she said, tears in her eyes. I would not forgive me either. I do not know if I can forgive you yet, I said honestly, but I am willing to see if we can start over, slowly, no expectations. She nodded, wiping her eyes. That is more than I deserve. Over the next months, Stephanie showed up. She called once a week just to check in. She came to visit bringing flowers from a local market, not an expensive florist. She asked about my life, my garden, my friends. She listened. It was not perfect. There were awkward moments, uncomfortable silences, but she was trying, genuinely trying. Brian flourished during this time. He called more often, visited regularly, seemed lighter somehow. Thank you, Mom, he said one afternoon as we worked together in the garden, for giving her another chance. I am not doing it for her, I said. I am doing it for you and for myself. Holding on to anger would only hurt me in the end. 6 months after the hotel incident, we had dinner together, the three of us, at my house. I cooked a simple meal, nothing fancy. Stephanie helped in the kitchen, asking questions about recipes, laughing at my stories. It was not like having a daughter. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was something. A beginning. As we sat on my back porch after dinner watching the sunset, Stephanie turned to me. Edna, I know I still have a long way to go, but I want you to know that you changed my life that day at the hotel. You held up a mirror and made me see who I had become, and I did not like what I saw. I reached over and squeezed her hand. We all have things to work on. The important thing is that you are trying. Now, almost a year later, things are different. Not perfect, but different. I have learned that standing up for myself did not destroy my family. It saved it. By refusing to accept disrespect, I taught everyone around me, including myself, what I am worth. I learned that silence is not always strength. Sometimes speaking up is the bravest thing you can do. I learned that people can change if they are willing to do the hard work. Stephanie is still changing, still growing. Our relationship will never be what it might have been if we had started differently, but it is real now, honest. Most importantly, I learned that my worth was never up for debate. I spent so long trying to prove myself to be accepted to be enough, but I was always enough. I just needed to believe it myself. I still own my hotels. I still live simply. I still dress in plain clothes and tend my garden. But now I do it with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly who she is. Sometimes I drive past the resort in Cannon Beach. I park and walk along the beach, remembering that morning in the lobby, remembering the fear and hurt and humiliation. But I also remember the strength I found, the voice I reclaimed, the dignity I refused to surrender. The ocean is constant, unchanging, powerful. It does not apologize for its strength. It does not diminish itself to make others comfortable. It simply is. I am learning to be like the ocean. Sometimes the people who judge us the most are the ones who need to look in the mirror the longest. And sometimes the hardest lesson we teach is not for them. It is for ourselves. Learning that our worth was never up for debate in the first place. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have spoken up sooner, or would you have stayed silent? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, someone who has ever felt invisible or disrespected. Your support means everything, and it helps us continue sharing these important stories. Thank you for listening, for being here, for being part of this community. May you always know your worth, and may you never let anyone make you feel less than you are. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.